Majority rules. This article is actually goes back a few years, 2010, and it quotes from the Federalist Papers. So this was posted September 5th, 2010. Madison and Hamilton would have voted no. I'm sure you all heard the names James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, two of the founders of our country. James Madison and Alexander Hamilton would have voted no on Tim Eyman's Initiative 1053 if they were alive today. They spelled out that their reasoning in the Federalist Papers, in which they discussed the wisdom and necessity of majority rules for voting, instead of requiring a supermajority vote. Their arguments, which helped to frame the majority voting provisions in the U.S. Constitution, are still as relevant today as when they were first written. Okay. Initiative 1053 is an attempt to rewrite the rules by which Washington state legislators make their decisions and vote. Article 2, Section 22 of the Washington State Constitution says the Washington State Legislature shall make decisions by a majority vote. A majority vote. So that means, let's see, if you have 21 legislators and 10 vote no and 11 vote yes, that one extra makes a majority. That's the simplest way I could put it. And the majority rules. Eyman wants to change this to require that a two-thirds vote is needed by both House and Legislature to pass revenue measure to fund state services or to repeal special interest tax exemptions that only benefit large corporations. James Madison in the Federalist Paper, remember James Madison was one of the earlier presidents of the United States later on, but he wrote in the Federalist Papers, had this to say about requiring super majority votes. It has been said that more than a majority ought to have been required for a quorum, and in particular cases, if not in all, more than a majority of a quorum for a decision. That some advantages might have resulted from such a precaution cannot be denied. It might have been an additional shield to some particular interests and another obstacle, generally, to hasty and partial measures. But these considerations are outweighed by the inconveniences in the opposite scale. In all cases where justice or the general good might require new laws to be passed or active measures to be pursued, the fundamental principle of free government would be reversed. It would be no longer the majority that would rule. The power would be transferred to the minority. Were the defensive privilege limited to particular cases, an interested minority might take advantage of it to screen themselves from equitable sacrifices to the general weal, or in particular emergencies, to extort unreasonable indulgences. Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Paper number 22 likewise stated, What at first might what at first sight may seem a remedy is in reality a poison. To give a minority a negative upon the majority, which is always the case where more than the majority is requisite to a decision, is in its tendency to subject the sense of the greater number to that of the lesser. Let's go a little. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. So this is one of those refinements which in practice has an effect the reverse of what is expected from it in theory. The necessity of unanimity in public bodies or of something approaching toward it has been founded upon a supposition that it would contribute to security, but its real operation is to embarrass the administration, to destroy the energy of the government, and to substitute the pleasure, caprice, or artifices of an insignificant, turbulent, or corrupt junta to the regular deliberations and decisions of a respectable majority. If a pertinacious minority can control the opinion of a majority respecting the best mode of conducing it, the majority, in order that something may be done, must conform to the views of the minority, and thus the sense of the smaller number will overrule that of the greater. Hence, tedious delays, continual negotiation and intrigue, contemptible compromises of the public good, and yet in such a system it is even happy when such compromises can take place, for upon some occasions things will not admit of accommodation, and then the measures of government must be injuriously suspended or fatally defeated. It is often by the impracticality of obtaining the concurrences of the necessary number of votes kept in a state of inaction. Its situation must always savor of weakness, sometimes border upon anarchy. These arguments from majority votes still ring true today. Washington state voters should vote no on Initiative 1053 and uphold our state constitution. So this was written back in September, this article, where they quote the Federalist Papers. And the Federalist Papers, this was written like around in the 1780s. Yeah, a long time ago, over 200 years ago. Not too long after the American independence. So this was like in the 1700s and 80s. And the reason I'm reading this is because right now going on we have this argument that in the Senate, in the United States Senate, the filibuster is needed, and we have Joe Manchin and a senator from Arizona. They both arguing how it's important. But James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, they were speaking from experience because they had the Continental Congress in those days, and they had a supermajority, and they saw the abuse that was taking place. That when you had a supermajority vote, you needed a supermajority to get anything done. And Alexander Hamilton spells it out exactly what will happen when you require a super majority. The minority takes over, and they do things. They stall. They obstruct government, and lots of things go on that are not really pleasant. So I think maybe Senator Manchin should read this version from the Federalist Papers because these guys were alive, so they know what they're talking about. You know, they were alive. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, they were members of the Continental Congress, and the Continental Congress, they did have that. So after after the Continental Congress, the United States Constitution was written during that time. So they learned their lesson from that. So that's why there's no supermajority or there's no filibuster in the United States Senate. The only time you have a supermajority is like for things like ambassadorship. If you want to, you know, or treaties, for example. If you're going to negotiate a treaty, you're going to ratify a treaty, then it has to come to the Senate, and I think it's something like a two-thirds majority. If you're going to have an impeachment, it's something like a two-thirds. We saw that played out twice. Yeah, with Trump in our lifetime. You're going to need like a two-thirds majority. So that's the only time they have a supermajority. And in that case, you're not really obstructing the government. You're not really doing anything that's interfering with the free flow of the government. However, what's going on in Washington today with obstruction and requiring filibuster and so forth, voting rights, that's definitely having an effect. And I wish Senator, what's her names? Senator Simona and Senator Manchin, I hope they would both read the Federalist Papers. They would see that they were wrong. That there's no way, and these guys were alive at the time, so they know what they were talking about, and they had the same experience with the Continental Congress. The Continental Congress before they actually wrote the U.S. Constitution, where they specifically left out anything about a supermajority. They say all you need is a majority vote. Like I give the example, if you have 11 versus 10, 11 is majority, 11 wins. And that's the way it is. And that's the way the U.S. Constitution was written. You don't need a filibuster. You don't need 60 votes. One time it used to be 70 votes. Majority rules. And majority does not have to be super majority. It doesn't have to be that way at all. See?